Larry, people are pretty shocked that this IG Horowitz report was a big nothing burger. I don't know if they're shocked, but they're disappointed. How are you doing?
Jason, I'm inflamed. It wasn't a nothing burger.
Right.
Quite opposite. It was a devastating burger.
Sort of a shit sandwich, perhaps.
Yes.
Sorry.
You know, I feel I wanted to come on today and just absolutely apologize to your audience that I misled. I didn't mean to. I was given the information I was given, as were a lot of people, and we were set up. I mean, this is Jason, this is more than just a mistake. This was not a mistake. It's not a mistake in reading the tea leaves of his investigation and what we thought it was going to be, et cetera, or what others thought it was going to be in high places. It wasn't that at all. This was a series of which things I can't go into on the air, but you know some of it. I mean, it was a series of things.
Deception, basically.
Yes. And it was designed to mislead. It was designed to make certain things not happen until it came out with the plan that it was coming out the way they had been led to believe. And then, you know, when the day comes, guess what? It was a total betrayal to the country and to the people trying to prosecute this incredible story. I mean, this case is just about, it's not just about, it is unbelievable, Jason, the level, the depth at which this deep state, the depth at which they've got our government in such jeopardy. It's scary, Jason, it's scary, and this is just an exclamation point to what we've been seeing all along.
Yeah. Well, Larry, I want to set your mind at ease. I mean, I personally don't hold this against you. I mean, you're telling us things that, to the best of your knowledge, are, you know, accurate. I don't feel that this is a deception by you. You shared information with us based on what you were seeing and hearing. It's interesting to note that already both William Barr, the Attorney General, and John Durham, his special investigator who's looking into all of this stuff, immediately came out and publicly disagreed with the Horowitz report.
Right.
But, I mean, to what extent, Larry, can we trust this? How do we know that this isn't just them covering their own behinds, saying, oh, we disagree, but they're just kicking the can down the road and nothing will happen? What are the implications of this recent development with regard to James Comey and Andrew McCabe?
Well, first off, the implications are incredible. Incredible. This ruling by Horowitz is devastating to Barr and Durham. It was an integral part. It was a cooperative program with each person having their duties, their responsibilities, their area of the case, you understand. And it was all triggered based off of Horowitz, which was setting the predicate for how it all started. Mm-hmm. So, and I've got to be so careful. These are what's so frustrating, Jason. Gosh, dog, I want to, if I could just tell people the source of information, how it's coming, but I can't. So it is very difficult. I will say this. With what Horowitz did today, he destroyed the basis that Barr and Durham were pursuing for their case. Destroyed it. When he took the FISA court application, which by any, and I'm not even trying to apply legal wrangling and stuff like that to it. I'm just saying, on its face, this was fraud against the court.
Yeah.
Okay? When you swear and attest that a document you're presenting to the court is verified, that you, not just verified, but that you verified it, and then you find out that it was wrong for several reasons. Number one, it was not true, number one. Number two, it was paid for by independent parties that had interest in the outcome of the document, such as the Clinton campaign, of course. Mm-hmm. When you can rule that to be a clerical error, we're in trouble deep.
Yeah.
And for him to declare right in the beginning, for him to declare that he found no verification, no evidence of political bias on behalf of Comey, McCabe, Rosenstein, the crew, in the outcome of the document. How can you do that when it was provided and paid for by a political campaign against the person and that you're investigating?
Yeah.
How do you do that? I mean, it's so where Durham is left and Barr are left now. Basically, the whole foundation of their case has been yanked out from under them.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, Larry, as I look at this picture of James Comey from the New York Times from just a few weeks ago, he looks like somebody who knew this was going to happen. I mean, he always seemed remarkably calm. I mean, certainly if you thought that the entire Justice Department was investigating you, it's unlikely you'd be hanging out with Star Wars toys, smiling in the living room.
Jason, first off, I've just got to get this off my chest because it's haunting me so bad, folks. I am so sorry. I am sorry. I warned you all since the day we first started talking that you can't trust anybody in Washington. You just can't trust any of them.
Yeah.
And I say that and I believe that. Well, then, if I say that and I believe that, Jason, then how did I get so committed to believing that the Horowitz report was going to come out and be straight?
Yeah.
Didn't ask for it to be overwhelming. I didn't ask for any crazy stuff. Why did I even think that it would have a chance at straight? Well, Jason, a lot of that was not even based off my having the ability to believe in Horowitz or any of them. On its face. There's certain things in law that even if you twist it and corrupt it and shake it and do whatever, I mean, just certain things stand out as just absolutes, right?
Can't get around them, right?
Well, that was the case with the Horowitz part of the investigation. His was dealing with the actual FISA applications. There it is. No biggie, no trick stuff. If Horowitz was a little kinky, if he was a little deep stater, if he was, even if he was in on it, the flat reality of those FISA warrants is what it is. I can't believe that somehow I should not have or figured out or seen or known, and I have let your audience and you down miserably, and I'm sorry. Apologies is not enough for what I did. I don't understand. I understand what happened. I don't understand how to make up to you and to your people, Jason. I'm so sorry.
Well, Larry, listen, don't beat yourself up, and I don't think you need to apologize. You were doing your best. Look, everybody wants to see a positive outcome here, and you know, it's easy to let your desire for something good to happen lead you down a road where you're going to believe, like you're saying, you don't understand how you could have believed in Horowitz and all that. I mean, I know that feeling, you know. This is like so serious, you know, if they succeed in impeaching Donald Trump, the office of the President of the United States will be forever damaged in a way that we will not be able to get back to, because they will demonstrate that they can effectively remove a president if a couple of, you know, maniacs in Congress decide that the law and the rules and the Constitution don't matter, and they can do a bunch of social engineering and wrangling on television and get somebody kicked out.
Well, and this morning, I heard Nadler make a statement. It was kind of in passing. I don't have the exact wording of it, but, you know, it was just something I didn't even worry about this morning. Now, having seen what Horowitz just has done, now I am panic-stricken.
Right.
Basically, what Nadler said this morning, folks, you'd have to pull it up, look it up. Somewhere in there he says it in his own words, not the ones I would use, but he was basically saying, or basically he pointed out that the 2020 election, because of what Donald Trump has done, has already been destroyed.
Right, tampered with.
There's no way there can be a 2020 election that's fair, because he's already moved and had it screwed up. Well, that didn't bother me this morning, but it does now. Because think about it, what I interpret him saying, my opinion is, well, even if we don't get him in the Senate, if the Republicans in the Senate refuse to take him out of office, then you have the option, well, will this smear during the campaign season, with him being under impeachment every day, being brought, you know, all this stuff coming out every day, surely he nor anybody else could win re-election under this kind of cloud, right? I mean, that just seems to be the obvious. But then you've got that third possibility that this morning didn't bother me. But what if the Senate refuses to take him out? And what if they find out down the road that even the smear that they're doing through the investigation and constantly bringing stuff up like that is obviously appears not to be sufficient enough to defeat him, right?
Yeah.
Then basically what Nadler is saying, then we must have another remedy. Now, what other remedy can there be other than conceptually just saying that apparently what he's talking about is there just won't be an election?
How can that possibly be?
Well, there's the catch-22 that didn't have me worried this morning, right? I mean, how can that be? How can you just snap your finger and say we're not going to have a damn election? It's not realistic. It's not even anything to worry about, right? It's except now with what Horowitz did, in light of what is right in front of you, it now hits me that I understand better, I think. These guys are making it up. They're making the rules up as they go along, Jason.
Yes, of course, that's clear.
You think they can do anything? They can do anything they want to do. Do you see that now?
Yeah.
They're in a position now where they are proving every day, Jason, they can do anything they want to do. And we apparently have no facility to stop them.
Yeah.
None.
It's very disconcerting, Larry, for sure. And I mean, even powerful people in the government, like the president and the attorney general, seem to be stymied by these guys. It's amazing how they've been able to do it. You know, Larry, Axios is reporting that Lindsey Graham said yesterday that he won't call Adam Schiff as a witness in a Senate trial. Why
Yep.
would he say that?
Yes. Well, that's another problem that we had come up yesterday, which was out of the blue, just out of the blue. You know, we've been worried that Mitch McConnell would stab the president in the back relative to the Senate trial. That was where the problem was going to be.
Right.
So we had a firm commitment from Graham that he was going to submit rules to the leader, and they were going to follow exactly the rules of court.
Right.
So therefore, everything was going to be resolved.
Process, all that.
Right. And certainly included in that would be that since Schiff has positioned himself to be a fact witness,
Right.
especially with his getting the phone records of Nunes and whatever the reporter's name is,
John Solomon.
yes, then it's absolute. They're going to bring Schiff in, question him, plus they're going to bring the whistleblower in because Schiff's relationship with the whistleblower and the two different stories of his relationship with the whistleblower makes him very crucial to the case. Yesterday, out of the blue, I get a phone call. My God, what's going on? I'm going, what do you mean? Graham is now, as of yesterday, he was suggesting that he probably was not going with Schiff. He was going to bring Schiff in. And due to the complexity of the relationship with Schiff and the whistleblower, he may not even allow the whistleblower to be called.
I mean, I don't think that Lindsey Graham is a person that can be trusted at all. I've never thought that. He obviously was up to something in Libya when he went there with John McCain, and it's unclear if they are giving this award to Belhaj or receiving this award from Belhaj. But this guy is a terrorist, and John McCain was meeting with him. Lindsey Graham is right there smiling with him. Something is not right about this photograph. It's actually something very wrong. Hank in Bangor, Maine is telling us, Larry, that we should look at the report on page 75, paragraph 3. Should I read that to you?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So it says, Lynch told the OIG that after one of her weekly security meetings at FBI headquarters in the spring of 2016, Comey and McCabe pulled her aside and provided information about Carter Page, which Lynch believed they learned from another member of the intelligence community. According to Lynch, Comey and McCabe provided her with information indicating that Russian intelligence reportedly planned to use Carter Page for information and to develop other contacts in the United States, and that they were interested in his affiliation with the campaign. Lynch told us that her understandings with this information from Comey and McCabe was preliminary, in that they did not state that any decisions or actions needed to be taken that day. She said that they discussed the possibility of providing a defensive briefing to the Trump campaign, but she believed it was preliminary and something that might happen down the road. According to Lynch, she did not recall receiving any further updates on this issue following the conversation. Lynch's recollection of what Comey and McCabe told her is consistent with information referenced in connection with the 2015 SDNY indictment and subsequent conviction of a Russian intelligence officer referenced earlier in this chapter. I hope that was the right paragraph. Does that seem significant to you, Larry?
It doesn't seem significant to me. I mean, unless I missed something, did it?
Well, I hope I'm reading the right paragraph.
To you?
Well, I mean, they've got information that they got from some unknown person that Carter Page is of interest. And we know that Carter Page had spent some time in the former Soviet Union. He is a guy who's experienced in energy and natural gas and stuff like that. So obviously when the Soviet Union was evolving.
I just miss, I think, the part where it connects to what we were referring to about, I mean, just kind of, I don't see how it fits into the stuff we were talking about with Lindsey Graham.
Right.
And pulling, not questioning or not bringing Schiff in or the whistleblower. That's the only part that had me confused.
Oh,
What
no,
did that
sorry,
have to do
yeah,
with
this comment was made earlier. I didn't mean to throw you off, Larry. I think that we need
Okay.
to dig into this report and read it some more. People are questioning my choice in, calling this episode the Horowitz Nothing Burger, because it's not a nothing burger. It's a neutron bomb that was basically set off.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
And, it going back to the situation of Graham, if Graham turns on Trump the way just the simple move of not calling Schiff or the whistleblower, either one or both, that adds to the problem that the Horowitz report does. I mean, everything that you don't do to give Trump a fighting chance to defend himself, Jason is basically convicting him.
yeah,
And that's the disadvantage the president's in. It's one thing for the government to have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that they've got him committing a crime. But then when it's all relevant now to the president being able to prove he did not commit one, but then the whole system is set up to where he can't defend himself, buddy, he's toast.
yeah.
He is toast.
It's not looking really good.
And
Yeah.
that problem translates into, folks, and I want to say this to you right out front. If President Trump is history as a function of all of these little irregularities and the tricks they're pulling, don't smile too much because it's Trump. It's us. If they can do this in front of God and everybody, to the President of the United States, ostensibly the most powerful man in the world, if they can do this kind of stuff to him,
Yeah.
do y'all not realize what jeopardy that puts us in, the average guy,
It's
where we
terrible.
stand? I mean, this is what you and I have begged people to believe that this could happen, to where now, Jason, we're sitting here and saying, don't you see, it's in front of us. It is. It not could happen. It is happening. These are tactics and maneuvers that are happening right now. Right now.
I know. I mean, I fear it might be too late, Larry.
Well, this is why I told you I was scared. And I'm not a man to scare easy. This one scares me. And then when you add to it, Graham, what's his interest? Well, remember, Graham's sugar daddy is his and John McCain before he passed. Their sugar daddy is, as it's always been, what? The industrial military complex. The industrial military complex. And you're telling me that the industrial military complex is sitting there with a hot war, as they call it, a shooting war, possibly, with Ukraine and Russia. And they got a pivotal guy in Graham and Trump right there where they can make money off of it. So, yeah, Graham is in a wonderful position to help his sugar daddy. Wonderful position. And if Trump crosses him in any way, he'll step on him like a bug.
I think he's been planning to double-cross Trump since the beginning. When John McCain died and he started pretending to be Trump's friend, I didn't buy that for a second. I don't trust Lindsey Graham. I don't like Lindsey Graham. Anything that relies on counting on Lindsey Graham should not be relied upon. It's a very bad situation. See, this is why I've been asking all along, why Devin Nunes has positioned himself to be this hero to the right, where, he's suing everybody and he's, he's making it look like he's standing up for Donald Trump. But if he was really doing that, he should have shut this down from inside the House Intelligence Committee the second Adam Schiff started doing it. The fact that he's allowed it to go on this long, I think, has put us in the position that we're in, right? This is, I mean, we've spoken about this before, Larry, right? This is an incremental kind of game of inches. They need to get everything positioned just so that they can announce that Hillary is running while all this bad news is coming out about Trump. They're working for a type of momentum, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's right there. And going back to the significance of Nadler's statement about, well, you know, since the election's obviously going to be rigged, then we can't possibly have one. Well, then let's explore then, oh my God, wait a minute. If you can't have remedy through the Senate trial, getting rid of him, and if it becomes apparent they can't beat him due to the stuff they've been bringing out even, well then the third remedy would be, well then you call off the elections. How do you call off an election? I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, we're not going to have a presidential election. I mean, I can kind of see that. Fine. You want to say that, do it. But then what do you do with the president? Do you have a president? Do you not? Doesn't it seem to you would have to declare? Seems to me you'd have to declare whether we've got a president or we don't, right? You can't just say we're not going to have the 2020 election right now because it looks like it's been rigged, so we're going to put it off. Well, if you put it off, guess what you're doing? You're leaving Trump as president until you resolve it, right?
Well, they'll obviously invent something else, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, they don't want that, right? They don't want Trump still sitting in office. That's counterproductive to what they're apparently trying to do, which is get rid of him. They want him out of there. Think about it. And then I say, well, gosh, see, all of this is so nuts. It can be possible. But then I look at, for the past 5 to 10 years, as you and I have done, how many things have we said time and time again, there's no way you can do that. It's never been done. Nobody can do that. Nobody can do that. And then they turn right around and do it. And right now, we have people, the Nadlers, the Schiffs, the Pelosi's, the deep state, whomever, we've got a ship that can do anything it wants to do. It's got to decide what it is they want to do it, and then they're making up the rules along the way, and they'll just make up the rules to fit it and do it.
Yeah. So Larry, we've got a lot of people in the comments I want to address for a moment here. Thomas Botch is watching us on Facebook, and he wants me to explain how Nunes has the single vote power to shut it down. That's not what I'm talking about. Adam Schiff has demonstrated that he is able to affect pretty astounding change by operating outside of the confines of the official process. So I'm not suggesting that Nunes would use his single voting power to challenge Adam Schiff. I'm suggesting that instead of being the selfish, ignorant jackass that he is, going on Fox News all the time talking about how he's suing Twitter, if he had used that time to talk about how what Adam Schiff is doing is unconstitutional, if he had called press conferences, if he had gotten the other members of Congress rallying around him to stop this process rather than crying about it, we might have been able to do something. We've also got some people here, Larry, who seem to be not happy with the idea that you are giving your insights and your analysis of this, so I'm happy to see these people leave. We saw the report, there are key findings in the report, and you and I are talking about your opinion of what those findings mean for the rest of the investigation. So we're happy to see J.J. McKay go, and I hope he doesn't let the door hit him on the butt on the way out, because rude comments, you take your $5 and leave.
Well, you know, Jason, damn it, I don't want to hurt your program. And I don't, you know, folks, these are opinions of mine. They were brought forth by me, not Jason, so Jason should not be penalized. He brings me on honestly, openly saying, you know, he's bringing me on with my opinions, and it's not his job to guarantee, you know, that I'm right on every call. That's not, you know, if you're going to do that, then you don't need anybody. You just do your own show and make all the rules. It's just, I don't want you to be penalized.
No, that's not it at all, Larry.
You have to understand. Well, remember, Jason, at least there should be some sense of comfort for people that obviously what I was relying on, apparently so too was Barr and Durham, because you see that they are just as upset apparently as any of us, that they feel like they had the knife stabbed in their back as well.
Exactly.
You know, so I'm not alone.
No, you're not. And let me interrupt for 1 second. I'm sorry I keep interrupting, but I wanted to say something because I don't want you to beat yourself up, okay? You're not coming on here and saying, here are facts. You're coming on here and you're saying, here's what we're being told, here's my analysis of that based on my experience and my expertise in politics. And the interesting thing is, you opened this conversation by expressing shock that you were fooled into believing that Horowitz was going to do something good. And I think it's social engineering that did that. This person, JJ, whatever his name is, who just threatened to take his $5 and go home, I've just checked, he's not a sponsor. He's a social engineer trying to discourage other people from becoming sponsors. It's not about being right 100% of the time. The fact that this is happening and that you're commenting on it, Larry, this is all happening in real time. Everyone is just as surprised by this as you are. I don't want you to beat yourself up over this.
Well, thank you. And you know, that JJ is once again is an example of what we fight here. You know, these people come on, they tell you one thing and they're not. You know, he's as much apparently a part, either in a minor way, large way, whatever, of the propaganda, of spinning, of doing what they can to destroy information from coming out that they don't want out.
Correct.
Look, you know, guys, when I tell you stuff, I usually always give you the rules. The rules are, I will say it is my opinion, or I will state it as fact, and then I'll give Jason or y'all, you know, where to find it. And then the third thing is if I give it and it's attributable to someone else, then I try to always tell you, you know, this was said by such and such place, go see what they said. So, I mean, I try to be as open as I can with where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
I am not a prophet. I don't read tea leaves. But what I do is I take all of the years of experience, I take all of the years of contacts, people that I have known for years and years and years, their credibility, and I apply it all to give y'all as much truth as I can give you. And as you see today, Jason, when even with all of that, it still flubs up.
Right.
I don't think I run to the hills and try to hide. I try to be open and frank and honest about it. Yeah. This is the whole position I took with Horowitz guys was not single source predicated off of things I was being told by my contacts, feeds, sources, whatever. A lot of what was going on with Horowitz had to do with the obviousness, the blatant fact that you had a simple, non-complicated case of fraud to the court.
Yeah.
Just on its face, Jason, just on its face. You don't need a judge, you don't need a jury, you don't need the Pope. On its face, when you say this is verified, and you swear and attest to it, and then you find out that they not only didn't know it was verified, but they knew that it was not verified. That is blatant fraud.
Yeah.
And then for him to come up with a ruling that he found no evidence or testimony or proof, whatever, of political bias affecting the decision with the FISA court thing is absurd when they know it was paid for. If it's paid for by a political campaign that's running against the person it's on, how do you say there's no appearance or apparent proof of bias politically?
Right. You really don't need to read much more of the report than that to know that there's a substantial problem. But let me go, Larry, for a moment to some of the positive comments here. D.T. Poolman says, I've followed you for decades, Larry. I have confidence in you, and I want to say thanks. So I think reasonable people understand that these things sometimes happen. We've got another good question coming from Thomas on Facebook. He says, what about the findings? The predicate was found okay by Horowitz to start the investigation. What about the reauthorization process? Was it implicated as being criminal? I don't know if you know the answer to that, Larry. This is sort of a initial overview of what's coming out, right?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that yet. I do not know yet. Right now, there is a lot of shuffling going on as to how Barr and Durham must rearrange their investigations to counter for the decision made by Horowitz. Now, let me explain some of the damage that Horowitz has done, folks, in case you don't know. We've talked extensively here, Jason, about even if he had the case laid out and he had proof and he had pictures and he had everything, you still have the problem ongoing, and a major problem, Barr does, of the court. The courts are crooked. So even if he's got a lay-down, slam-dunk case, if he takes it to the D.C. court, when we already know the jury pool's so slanted, he's going to lose. If he takes it to the Southern District Court in New York, based off what we know of I'm just talking about strictly the jury pool survey, it's slanted. You're going to lose. Now that's if you got a lay-down case. Now we throw in the complication of Horowitz removing a very significant part of the fact evidential-based case. Now he's clouded that up. So you see, Barr or Durham, either one, in the prosecutorial application of the case, they can't run into the court and say, well, you see, they did, there was fraud obviously committed at the the FISA warrant level, so therefore the rest of the case, Well, they'll throw that out because they've got the Inspector General saying that there was nothing wrong with that. Buddy, you talking about putting a turd in the buttermilk, they put one in it.
Exactly. People are saying things like, Horowitz doesn't have the ability to prosecute and all that, but this was very obviously a major strategic move to throw off everything that Barr and Durham have been sort of, building up towards. The New York Times has an inflammatory headline saying that the Attorney General reprised his role as a vocal defender of Donald Trump. But that's not true at all, is it, Larry? In this case, William Barr is a defender of justice. We can't have corrupt FBI agents doctoring FISA warrants to try to investigate people.
Well, and once again, here we go. We had foretold this was coming since day one, and that's if we did get the truth out of Horowitz. They were just going to add Horowitz and Durham and Barr to all three just being obstructionists covering for Trump. Well, now, they're really going to lay the hammer on Barr and Durham and claim that, gee whiz, look what, they're just front men to protect Trump. There's no validity in their case at all, obviously, because Horowitz has already proved there's no validity in their case. No, Horowitz didn't prove there was no validity in the case at all. That's not what he did, but that's how it will be spun. And unfortunately, that's how a large number of people in this country will believe. And just like today's hearing, today's hearing added to the Horowitz thing, what we run the risk of, you and I talked about it this morning, Jason, is we have got this case now to where probably, I don't know, 1% of the population is just overwhelmed. They don't understand any of this. Good God, this hearing today, what's its point? What's its purpose? What's the precedent to a hearing like today? Huh?
It was extra annoying today, I have to tell you, because it was more of these law professors and people who aren't witnesses, and Nadler making proclamations and things and not allowing any of the Republicans to speak. He was gaveling them down, not allowing their motions or whatever. People are asking, what about Huber, Larry? What do we think Huber is going to do?
Well, at this point,
all bets are off, really, right?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, what do I say? What can you say? I mean, if you're going to make me bet after the scene we have seen today, if you're making me bet, I'm going to say chalk him up as in the tank. I don't look for any relief there.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, Jason, nothing is going to happen now until this goes to court. And when it goes to court, that's going to determine whether we have a country or we don't.
Yeah. Phil McCracken asks,
going to be off.
Phil McCracken asks, why would Trump put Barr in if it wasn't a joke? I think that people need to keep in mind that Donald Trump himself is being socially engineered in the role as president. Mm-hmm. There's people who are presenting, like somebody was talking to me yesterday telling me that, Ambassador Sondland gave all this testimony and he's a Trump appointee, so Trump's own people are turning against him. But I mean, I don't know anything about Sondland. I didn't ever see him hanging around Trump Tower. I never saw him on Page 6 having cocktails with Trump or over in Atlantic City. I think it's very possible somebody in Washington, D.C. on like January 22nd probably said, hey, Mr. Trump, you got to hire like 60,000 people. How about this guy? And Trump appoints him, and now he's a Trump appointee, but Trump doesn't know him at all. He even said in the testimony he's never spoken to Trump.
Right. Well, he said, look, the whole exercise of ambassadors and such as that, which is a good part of the task for a president once elected, you've got an enormous number of slots to fill. Historically, the way it's done, which was the way it was done in this case, the president assembles several teams, and these are close people that he knows or trusts or whatever, and then these people review applications, et cetera, and then they compile what's called a short list. The short list is then turned over to the president, and from that list, he makes his choice. Now, Sondland, if you listen, Sondland gave to the inaugural committee, he gave a nice lump sum of $1 million. So for that $1 million, he obviously got his name put in the pile to be, quote unquote, an ambassador somewhere. That's the first job they give to these repayments for the big contributors, right? The ambassador jobs, and as you saw in the hearings, these actual ambassadors that are appointed by the president, well, they go in and they play the role. They have the cocktail parties, but it's actually the long-standing professional foreign service guys that actually run the operation, right? I mean, that's where this one got screwed up. That's when we have the problem. And they don't like their world being messed with. For a president, you appoint you an ambassador, that's great, appoint him, and we'll put him in the cocktail parties and let him take his pictures and stuff, but stay out of the management of the governmental affairs. That's what we do. And what President Trump did, to his chagrin, I guess, what he did is, wait a minute, that's the way you've always done it. But here's what I want to do. I don't want to just give these countries all this money and not worry about it. Because I don't want to do that. I want to more closely manage foreign aid. He said it in his campaign, Jason. He said, I don't want to keep giving foreign aid to countries that hate us.
Right.
I don't want to keep giving money to foreign countries when, like in Europe, when the European countries are the ones that should be pouring in the coal, not us. They're under threat. We're not. I mean, these are all things he said he was going to do during his campaign. And then lo and behold, when it comes time to do it, he does it. And then the world freezes and says, oh, God, what are you doing? But, yeah, he didn't pick in all honesty, he didn't pick Soundland. Soundland was one of probably 5 or 6 on the short list picked by the committee, and he just went, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, picked one, and he did, and there it was. The guy gave more money than anybody else, so he won the turkey.
Let me ask you this, Larry, because as I'm looking up Gordon Sondland, it seems he's the founder and former chairman of a hotel group called Providence Hotels, and he's also the co-founder of Merchant Bank Aspen Capital. So I wonder, is this someone who is taking this position to make a strategic play against a business competitor?
It could have been. Could have been. I wondered the same thing when I heard that. I didn't know it, but I heard it, and I thought it was kind of odd. And then to be honest, my first thought was, then this guy and Trump had a relationship because they're both in the hotel business. But then I found out through the hearings, Trump didn't know him from Adam.
Right. He is also with this Aspen Capital. Is that at all related to the Aspen Institute, I wonder? See, there's all these things happening underneath the surface, right? I mean, Larry, when people see things on TV, like you've been there in Washington, you were there in Arkansas when Bill Clinton was governor. Is it 1% of what's actually going on that gets broadcast to the public? Is it 0.5%?
It's not even that much. It's just infinitesimal.
Right.
What we are enlightened about, truly. So much of it, Jason, over the years has just been set, and it's running. And that's why Trump's got a problem getting rid, quote unquote, of the deep state, cleaning out the swamps.
Yeah.
Buddy, it's entrenched. It's entrenched. And for you to make a decision that makes sense, you've got to go back and look. Now, wait a minute. How many of these professional government service people did I step on to do this thing that makes sense? Because if the professional government service people really wanted to do it, they would have done it.
Yeah.
How do you think this money has been so available to politicians through this racket? Mulvaney was telling the truth. He said, if you want to say that it's quid pro quo to say to the president of Ukraine, before we give you this money, we want to make sure you're going to do this, or will you do that? If you want to call it quid pro quo, then it is. And don't worry about it. We do it all the time. That was what he was saying. We do it all the time.
Right.
But he wasn't referring singularly to Trump. He was referring to the system innately does it all the time.
Right.
And that's why they are so sensitive to this Biden thing, because the politicians don't want this area explored, because if it does, Jason,
they're all in trouble.
They're all in it. And you can just pick country after country, and I can show you without even knowing anything. If I don't even know the country, I don't even know what part of the globe it's on. You show me a country where there's foreign aid, and I will show you at some way, somehow, give me 30 minutes, and I'll find the politician's relative that is somehow in the daisy chain, and their profit.
Yeah.
Swear to God. There it is.
It's just the way it's done.
There it is. It's the way it's done. Does that make it right? No.
But that's what Trump means when he talks about draining the swamp. And listen, Larry, it's not at all unreasonable if you're going to give a bunch of money. I mean, look, if you gave $100 to somebody, you're going to tell them, don't spend it on booze, or don't, So he's giving all this money to Ukraine, and we have evidence of corruption there. It's so interesting, Larry, how we just have moved so far away from anything having to do with Biden. It's like Biden is this protected species who can't be looked at or talked about, but anything Donald Trump does is immediately a crime.
It's got to be that way, Jason. That's what I've been trying to say on this program. It's got to be that way. They cannot let the door get open to Biden. Because if the door's open to Biden, the door's open to what's going on with all of them, and has been going on for years. And it does not take a brain surgeon. It doesn't take people that hate me on your program, or it doesn't take people that like me being on your program to do some simple, quick figuring that there's got to be something connected to people coming to Washington with a modest net worth. They stay there a term or two, and then they are multimillionaires all of a sudden, and they've done it ostensibly based off this pay that they get for being a congressman or a senator. No and it don't add up.
Right. Yeah, there's just no way. We are getting some very good comments. Thomas is watching very closely on Facebook, and he suggests that Trump should discuss the role of the National Defense Authorization Act in propaganda dissemination. But I think the problem in doing that, Larry, is that most of the people that are watching Crowdsource the Truth and listening to your show are here because they've realized that the mainstream press and the mainstream news isn't giving them the information that they want, information that they know is true. They're watching the news and they realize they're being lied to. And really that makes them smarter than the average person who just watches the news and lets it wash over them. So I think it might be a complex topic for Trump to introduce to the general public. One of the things that I've observed that Donald Trump is very good at, and probably the reason why he's become so famous for tweeting, is that he's good at consolidating ideas into tiny little inflammatory insults that just keep people talking about these ideas and cause them to dig deeper. He's not Ross Perot getting up there with a card presentation and a complex idea that he's trying to share.
Right. And, Trump, as I have stated time and time again, Jason, Trump has one incredible stone hanging around his neck that weighs him down.
What's that?
He represents us. Right. Us. And what he stands for, whether maybe he doesn't even know it as much as it's true, he stands for us. Do we still have a voice in our government? Do we still have a voice in it anymore? Do we still have a place of importance?
Seems like no.
And I'm afraid that's this battle we're in. And we are now at the point, Jason, to where it's all out, it's all owned, it's in for real. We're in for real, Jason. We're in for real, and it's either victory or defeat. And as I see what Horowitz has done, which is just kind of goofy folks going all the way around all of these philosophical and crazy things that we talked about and getting us back to Horowitz. I'm telling you, Horowitz is shockingly important to us all because they've done it right. He did this right in front of God and everybody. And it's the challenge. The challenge is here now. Do we let it stand? Do we say, it's just another one of those things that we just need to let happen, shut up, and go on down the road, and we'll worry about it or not worry about it later?
Mm-hmm. Larry, here's an interesting... Sorry, say again?
Well, if we do that, we lose.
Right. We've got an interesting comment from Jeff George, who's watching on YouTube, and he's talking about James Comey on the cover of the New York Times with the Star Wars toys. He's saying that the deep state was communicating through PlayStation chat in Star Wars video games. That is really interesting. I'm going to go out on a limb here, Larry, and I'm going to presume you've never played Sony PlayStation and probably never played a Star Wars video game. But some of these online video games allow you to wear a headset so that you can communicate sort of just like you and I are right now. So if we're on the same team, I can tell you fly left, fly right. If I blow up your spaceship, I can trash talk you and whatever. So they're able to communicate over this thing, but I don't know anything about the technology of how the chat works on a Star Wars video game. But Larry, there's so many video games out there. I bet you could find one that allows you to chat but doesn't save the chat in any way. And for lawyers like James Comey and for people who want to communicate in a way that can't later be discoverable, this seems like a very plausible allegation that Jeff George is making.
You're so far out of my sphere of knowledge with that kind of stuff, Jason. I don't even
Well,
I
from
couldn't
the
even
standpoint of the
comment.
law, you know these guys don't want to be emailing because when it gets into a criminal case, those emails are going to be
Right.
discovered by the prosecution.
Right.
They don't want to talk on the phone because there's going to be phone records that Adam Schiff
Right.
can subpoena from AT&T.
So
But if you
you're
turn on
saying
the Star
basically
Wars
what you're
game,
talking, what you're saying there is to people that know they have they've got a method of communication that's exclusive or private of sort, right? I
exactly,
mean,
it's private, it's exclusive, and it's not saved in any way. In other words, you can't call Sony and say, hey, give me the log from the chat that Jason and Larry had when they were destroying the Death Star. That's going to be nowhere. Sony doesn't have that. So it's like an invisible communication.
yeah. I mean, look, there's so much trickery in things going on technologically today, Jason, that would probably scare a sane man into a nervous breakdown. I mean, I have no idea. You know, I got tickled today. They were talking when they were justifying that, you know, they got Nunes's phone records and that reporter's phone records, but don't worry about it.
Right.
They just got, you know, the numbers he called. They didn't get into monitoring his conversation. Oh, okay. So, fine. I mean, are we supposed to just to believe that? I mean, if they could go in and get who he called, what day, the time, etc., are you kidding me that the minority leader of the Intelligence Committee's phone call, that they're not set up to monitor it as a part of just routine national security? So if they know the call they're looking into, are you telling me they don't have the ability to go in and go back and monitor what was said in that call if they choose to?
Well, the Washington Examiner is reporting just an hour ago that Democrats stonewall on whether Schiff ordered Nunes phone call subpoenas. The Democrats presenting their impeachment report on President Trump refused to say who called to obtain and publish the call records.
Right.
So this is
Oh, yeah,
totally
I mean,
a closed process, Larry.
Right. I mean, think about now here again, when you add it to everything that's going on, it's order of magnitude, right? But again, 48 hours ago, they get 8,000 documents they've been requesting for months, and they get them dumped on them, and they got 48 hours until they've got to use them or not in a hearing, and they've never seen them before. They're not gathered in any constructive way to have easy access to them. Then they turn around and say stuff like that. And Jason, my God, if you're telling me Google and Twitter and Facebook and those guys can tell you what magazine you read, when you read it, etc., as a matter of course, and you're telling me they can't go in and tap the conversation Nunes had with Giuliani if they want it?
Oh, I'm sure they have
Are
it
you
already.
kidding?
Yeah, the NSA has it.
And this is where we are in so much trouble again. We, you and I, we, the people listening to us right now, we have no idea what this deep state is capable of.
Right.
And I'm not talking about what they're capable of mentally, you know, what they're willing to do, whatever it said. I'm talking about we have no idea what they're capable of doing technically.
Technologically, exactly. Well, a lot of people
Yeah.
are talking about that, Larry. They're saying that the NSA monitors everything. Well, I mean, look, certainly I don't know what the NSA does and doesn't do. We've heard from Bill Binney and others that the NSA has installed these kind of like, you know, giant vacuum type things at AT&T. We know that Joe Naccio, the CEO of Quest, was thrown in prison because he refused to allow them to do this with Quest customers. So, I mean, the NSA can gather all phone calls, all emails, all that, but we don't know if they have the same type of interception tools at whatever server or station or whatever it is that's transmitting messages within a Star Wars game. In fact, it's reasonable to presume that the NSA isn't looking at that, and the FBI would know what communication vehicles are available that the NSA isn't looking at. I mean, certainly any electronic communication could be intercepted, but you've got to be expecting communication to happen there. I think telephones and email are something they've been thinking about for a long, long time. Communicating in a Star Wars game might be something that wasn't exactly on their radar.
Right, but this gets down to, once again, trust in your government. Let's just say that Nadler, Schiff, Pelosi, whomever these people are that want to take over our country. And I know it to be the Progressive Council, but that's for me, and maybe people believe me or don't. Call it George Soros, call it the Bilderbergers, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
One of the problems that they would have in a modern day world, think about Germany in the old Hitler days and stuff. If you're going to put a country into submission, right?
Yeah.
You got to do it. You got to put them in submission. Well, one of the tricks in submission is you got to keep people from getting fired up. You don't want people getting together and, everybody getting all excited, protesting, rioting, causing trouble to the state. You don't want that trouble. Mm-hmm. Jason, they've got us in submission now in that you wouldn't, once they close us in, once they actually declare, all right, guys, this is what we're going to do, and you better shut up and pay attention. You better do what we tell you. And you better not go talking to your neighbor. You better not go calling your brother and firing people up and trying to cause trouble, because if you do, we're going to get you. Everybody's going to be so paranoid, and justifiably so, that, Jason, you won't even talk to anybody on the phone.
Yeah. Well, that's what they want.
Anybody. Yeah. Well, that's why I go and make such a big deal about Soros and getting these prosecutors and prosecuting attorneys and sheriffs and judges in the state level, down ballot level. Why am I so concerned about that? That's part of the submission process. All they got to do is pick 2 or 3 people in the state of Arkansas that might have an opinion that objects to the system, the deep state, and raise a little hell. Well, you know what? Just like they're doing with the president, which they've now proven, they'll just prosecute me. And when they prosecute me, they make a big deal out of it, destroy me financially, make sure I don't have a thing left, can't get a job, family can't get a job. They make an example of you, and you know what? Nobody else stands up.
Right.
Very, very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, that was even mentioned when I went to Oxford to listen to the speech that Eric Braverman was giving. There was a guy there from, I think, Zimbabwe. I forget exactly which African nation he was from, but he said when you're dealing in an entirely corrupt government, people see that someone sticks their head up to say something and they immediately get their head chopped off. The second person is very reluctant to do that, right along the lines of what you're saying, Larry. So we're almost out of time here, Larry. I just want to remind people before we give the closing comments that they really should go over to nicholslive.com and click on the donate tab where they can use your PayPal email address, nicholslive@aol.com, to send Larry some money via PayPal. You can also put some cash in an envelope and mail it to him at Conway, Arkansas. For people who appreciate Larry's analysis of this type of information, his opinions, his insights, his commentary, that's what this show is all about. If you want the facts of the report, you can download it for free and read it. If you want to hear what Larry thinks about the report, that's why we're all here. And I appreciate you, Larry. I don't want you to beat yourself up. You're giving us the best insights that you're able to arrive at based on the information that you get. Is there anything you want to say in closing? We're going to have you back tomorrow for your regular show at 3 p.m. Eastern.
Well, I hope tomorrow to be able to give y'all more detailed information about what all is actually happening and the counter moves now that are being planned to deal with it. But, we're coming back tomorrow, and guys, I just insist that everybody understand the message I'm trying to give is one of hope, Jason. It's not one of defeat. We have 3 distinct weapons that we were given to fight a situation exactly like this, which is the taking over of our country. And that is our voices collectively, and our vote. And when all the fat's cut from the hog, this whole thing gets down to the unique formula of this election this year, which is 50-50 basically. And all that's being said to say this, folks, we're going to have one shot at this. If we do get to have an election in 2020, if we do get to have one, we're going to get one shot at this, and that means everybody must vote. If you don't vote, you do vote.
Right.
So, please, guys, this all seems almost, well, it is overwhelming. I'm not going to lie about it. It's overwhelming. It's just incredible. But it's here. It's on us. And, Jason, we have to fight it. You just can't let it go.
Yeah. And, Larry, you know, the other potentially important development that's happening tomorrow is the day that YouTube will roll out these dreaded new terms of service.
Yeah.
Nobody really knows what that's going to contain. But you know what? I forgot to mention, Larry, for the first time today, we're doing something very unique. Let me just double check and make sure that it worked out the way that we planned. But if people are watching us now on the Larry Nichols YouTube channel, you are enjoying the first ever live simulcast of the show, and it is working. We've got 74 people watching on Larry's channel. Larry, I'm going to work with you to try to enable Super Chat on your YouTube channel, so that way every time when we're live, people can use Super Chat to send some funds to you. Of course, everyone can still use your PayPal address, nicholslive@aol.com, to send you money by PayPal, which is the most convenient way to send money to Larry. You can also put some money in an envelope and mail it to him. Larry, I'm always pleased to have you on the show. We'll be back tomorrow at, boy, that's really weird. We've got the show on the show with you on top of the show. It's amazing, the video effect I've created there. But we'll have you back tomorrow at 3 o'clock, Larry. We're going to learn some more about the report between now and then. I really appreciate you taking the time out today, and I know everybody else does. I want to thank everybody for watching. I'm going to have the Moriartys with me later tonight at 8 p.m. for Unseen Libya, and then we've got a special report tonight at 10 from Larry Klayman, also about this latest, really, I can't say surprising, but very upsetting turn of events with IG Horowitz's FISA abuse report. Larry, thanks for joining me. I'll speak to you tomorrow.
Yeah, sounds great.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day. Tonight, Jimmy and Joanne, you're going to be presenting some stunning evidence of one of the most shocking claims that we've heard, and you guys have persistently stood by this. Welcome back to the show. How are you tonight?
Great.
Good. We're doing much better. Thanks,
Glad
Jason.
to be with you, Jason. Thank you.
Last week you were recovering from an illness, so you're both looking very well. Nicely dressed. I love that outfit there, Joanne. What is the design there? Oh, Jimmy, you look great too. But that's a really nice looking jumper or fleece that you've got, kind of an Indian design.
Yeah. American Indians. I love American Indians. So.
Yeah. Great, great. Well, tonight we're going to be talking about, I mean, when I first saw you guys presenting your story, this claim was one of the most shocking in my mind. You've spoken many times about how the two of you stood in your hotel and watched U.S. NATO Blackhawks fly over Tripoli and just open fire on civilians.
Yep.
Well, you know, Jason, we've been validated by the U.S. intelligence agencies as all of our information being correct. And so, you know, we have, based on what we have been given by the tribes, and all the information either we got from the tribal leaders or we gathered ourselves. And we became very confident of the information they provided us, because before we ever got it, it had always been validated 2 or 3 times. And of course, a lot of things we say are so shocking, and it's hard for people to grasp this concept that the bad guys are Washington D.C. You know, we're the evil empire, and so you know, we're hit constantly about that. And so 280 gigabytes of information is what Joanne was able to secret out of Libya. And if you can imagine trying to go through all that and pick out those validating points. And so what we're doing tonight is we're bringing forward a bunch of validation of what we've said. For instance, we talked about the tribal leaders went to Algeria to buy a tanker, a ship full of gasoline for Tripoli because the U.S., UN, NATO had embargoed gasoline from Libya, which is an absolute attack on the civilians.
Tripoli.
Yeah.
From Tripoli, yes.
Yeah.
And so the tribal leaders, before they went over there in a bus, 20 of them went in a bus full of money to buy and pay for a large ship full of gasoline. They bought it, paid for it. When it was coming back to Tripoli, it was attacked by special forces from England and France. They hijacked it,
Supported by
pirated the ship, took it to Benghazi, and delivered all the gasoline to the U.S., the CIA, and Mossad trained mercenaries. Again, this is an attack on the people. Well, we've said that, and tonight we're going to deliver proof positive that that's exactly what happened. And another video we're showing is U.S. attack helicopters flying all over Tripoli.
Yeah.
And they're scanning all Tripoli to find the key targets to, of course, kill them. And the U.S. there was never a declared war there. There was no fly zone set up
Tripoli
within 2
was
or 3 days.
completely peaceful.
Yeah.
There was nothing going on there. These attacks were just free gratis. It's like someone flying over Houston or flying over New York and just deciding, oh, we're going to blow this up. Oh, we're going to blow that up. Oh, I think we'll blow this up. Oh, we'll kill these people.
And not only that, but the U.S. was using cluster bombs, which are precluded. They're outlawed from any kind of combat period.
This is
and the
white
cluster bombs were
phosphorus,
used
right?
in civilian areas. Sir?
White phosphorus bombs, the cluster bombs, right?
No, that's a different deal. That's a fuel air explosive. The cluster bombs are a bomb that when it explodes, it's got thousands of munitions then that go out and explode.
Right.
A fuel air explosive distributes phosphor over a large area, and then that's ignited. That's a poor man's nuclear weapon.
During this time, when they were attacking Libya, they accused the Libyan army of using cluster bombs. Libyan army didn't even have any cluster bombs, but they were using them daily. And so we came to understand that everything they accused Libya of, they were doing.
Continues to this day.
Yeah.
This is why, and there's a couple of emails that Joanne wrote. She was really angry about one of them, and she's going to read those in our regular show. And everything she said and accused U.S. UN and NATO of doing then continues to this day.
This is a time-dated email because I wrote it while I was in Libya. I wrote a bunch of emails while I was in Libya. And there were a couple of them that are quite dramatic
Really
and outline exactly what's happening.
So it's sort of like contemporaneous, stuff you were writing while you were there, and this was all going on. That's going to be interesting for people to hear.
And there's a lot of emotion in it.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's important for people to realize, sorry to interrupt you there, Jimmy. I just want to make sure everybody knows that in 25 minutes, we're going to be starting the regular show, which is Unseen Libya with James and Joanne Moriarty. That show is available to sponsors on patreon.com/James and Joanne Moriarty and patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. And Jimmy and Joanne, the holidays are coming up. I know a lot of people have to be very conscientious of how they spend their money. So this is not a matter of us putting information behind a paywall. People who don't like, this notion of us having a subscription service need to direct their feelings towards Google and YouTube and Facebook and these various digital giants that dictate what can and cannot be said on these platforms. Tomorrow, guys, is December 10th, the day that this really sort of unknown but kind of feared change to the YouTube terms of service is coming. So it's unknown what the future of Crowdsource the Truth will be with regard to YouTube, but people can still watch these shows on patreon.com. And tonight's show, Unseen Libya, is going to be simulcast on patreon.com/James and Joanne Moriarty, patreon.com/crowdsource the truth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsource the truth. And I want to thank you two once again for creating this show with me and helping me to create this platform that hopefully can break through this really repressive censorship that's been going on. It's totally unbelievable. but not as shocking as the story that you're telling us. The thing that occurs to me when I think about this incident, because I've seen the picture of Jimmy standing inside the hotel room with the bullet hole in the glass. Who was flying these helicopters? These are servicemen and women in the United States military who, I get it that they have to take orders, but this is straight murder.
Yep.
Sure it is.
Out and out assassination.
And these are attacks on civilians. And let me tell you another sad story. U.S. is doing the same thing in Bolivia right now. The administration has decided to take over that country, and our soldiers are on the ground in Bolivia killing men, women, and children. They should never be put in that position. And us allowing our government to continue to do these things is unconscionable.
You know, the soldiers are learning very quickly who the good and bad guys are.
Yeah.
There was an article out today, and it's been out, came out yesterday, and I've seen it a number of times today, about how the U.S. military has a higher regard and a higher understanding and respect for the Russians than they do the U.S.
Wow.
And the Pentagon is blown the Pentagon's mind. They said that's because the Kremlin is using mind control.
Yeah, mind control the U.S. Army.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's that the Army and the military guys, a lot of them are upstanding people, and they're not going to do this anymore. They're seeing the writing on the wall.
Oh, I've spoken to
many.
Russia's
got this perverse system that they're. Go ahead.
Well, I've spoken to many service people who share that sentiment. I mean, I have no idea what it's like to be embedded in there, but what we really need is for some of them to, I mean, I don't know what they can do. It's like, you know, you're inside this corrupt machine. What do you do? I'd like you guys to take notice that when I mean, obviously this is Google. Everybody's going to tell me to go to DuckDuckGo. But when you put in United States, Bolivia, look at the news that gets returned. We've got Truth Out, The Nation, Consortium News, Al Jazeera, but then when we get to the Washington Post, you know, those top returns are talking about the United States being complicit in an illegal coup, but then we've got the Washington Post talking about a tornado in Bolivia. That doesn't seem to be relevant.
Well, Bolivia is the world supply of lithium right now, and of course China has a contract for all that lithium for the next 20 or 30 years, and so that the trade talks between the U.S. and China are really focused on trying to get China to give up a lot of these rare earths and heavy earths that they control in order to release the sanctions and everything. And China said, go pound sand. So, of course, the next thing is for the corporations that need those components for their batteries and everything, they go and attack Bolivia. You know, this is not the United States that any of us grew up understanding was our country, and that's just not legitimate. The oil in Venezuela, we took over we're trying to take over Venezuela to get the oil to subordinate the Federal Reserve petrodollar. Shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
We've taken over the oil fields in Syria. For what reason? To turn it over to some corporation that's not defined. You know, we shouldn't be doing that.
It's the U.S. fighting for corporations.
Yeah.
And they're not fighting. You know, you have to look at why the U.S. military was even formed, to protect and serve the Constitution and the people of the United States, not to protect and serve Exxon and you know, BP and Halliburton and all these big corporations, big pharma.
It's really upsetting, and I know that viewers of Crowdsource the Truth and Unseen Libya don't approve of this. I mean, we have got to get this country back on the right track, and destroying all these other less equipped and less financially capable countries. This is just spreading hatred and creating more terrorists. I mean, there could be some little child in Bolivia whose family gets killed by some indiscriminate attack who dedicates the rest of their life to destroying the country. Why? To destroying our country, to exacting revenge. Why aren't we spreading peace around the world?
Really? Look
Jason,
at what we've
also,
done to Syria.
We're going to cover this in the regular show, but we want everybody, all your YouTube audience, go look up the new trade agreement that was signed by Trump, USMCA or whatever the hell it's called. It's the TPP on steroids, and it puts corporations in a higher ranking than a sovereign nation, and there are 19 new corporations formed that control all the commerce in North and South America via this illegal treaty that was signed. It was called the TPP. That was thrown out. That was an Obama deal. The new one is worse than the TPP. And Kirshner and one other criminal were the main negotiators. They didn't negotiate anything. They took the Obama TPP, pumped a bunch of steroids into it, and now there are 19 corporations that control all commerce between Canada, the United States, Central America, and South America. Really.
Why is Jared Kushner having any role in government?
He
He is
shouldn't.
nobody. He
I
has no
agree.
experience.
Yeah.
Nothing.
It extends over Pacific Rim. This is an absolute criminal effect of corporations being put above countries. And, you know, the people need to read that stuff. They need to, this is evil.
But listen, Jared Kushner is pure nepotism for Trump to put him anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's a hit on Trump. That's shame on him.
Yeah.
He should not be putting his family in places that they're not even qualified. And Jared Kushner is a Mossad agent. I mean, why are we having Mossad agents in the U.S. government?
Let's find out where the first $1.6 billion that was lost on his evil 666 building in New York, and another $3 billion that they built out of China. That was the first trip. First thing Trump did is appoint him to go to China and be a special envoy, and they got another $3 billion for his 666 building in New York.
He's a businessman. Why? I mean, he's not even a...
Well, I definitely disapprove of this character, but do we know that he's a Mossad agent? There was a weird exchange between him and Bibi Netanyahu early in the Trump presidency, but I don't know, are we sure he's a Mossad agent or he's just somehow an asset?
Netanyahu sleeps in his bedroom. When Netanyahu is in New York, he sleeps in Kirshner's bedroom. He's a great friend of the family. And, you know, the word from inside, outside, from many intelligence agencies is he's the Mossad guy, and he's the guy they're grooming to be the new leader in Israel.
Wow. Jared Kushner?
Not a good guy.
Wow. Yeah. That's troubling. Wow. Well, we're just about 15 minutes away from our show that's going to be starting at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on patreon.com/James and Joanne Moriarty, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. This is going to be a very important show. We're going to be talking about things that you guys saw in Libya, presenting videos, Joanne's personal emails that are going to really help us understand her state of mind. I'm sure, Joanne, every time you read these emails, it brings you back. There's a troubling development with Bolivia and all the, you know, we really want Donald Trump to live up to a higher standard than somebody like Joe Biden, who's putting his son in charge of every single thing that he's not qualified for. So, yeah, people don't really like Jared Kushner. I don't know why he's able to do that.
Nobody likes Jared Kushner except his daughter.
He's illegitimate. He's absolutely illegitimate in any position in our government.
Yeah, he has no legitimacy.
No bona fides.
Why did they give him a security clearance? How did the Democrats let him?
Who knows? His father and uncle are both in prison as criminals,
it's not good.
No good nicks. And then his 666 building, nobody should ever be allowed to touch anybody else's money after he bilked $1.6 billion from the Chinese. And that building, no rebuild was ever done. The plans to tear it down, build a taller building, nothing ever happened. That $1.6 billion disappeared. It's about 60% occupied. It's losing $10 million a month, the income versus the cost. The first thing he did after Trump was president, he made him a special envoy to China. He went over there and picked up another $3 billion from Chinese investors.
Huh. I don't know.
You know, the name of the building should be enough.
I don't know that much about this building. I've walked past it. Here's an odd bit of news. Apparently, Marvel Comics' new headquarters is connected to Donald Trump, DC Comics, and Satan. Last week, Bleeding Cool, which is this comic book news site, told you that Marvel Comics was packing up their New York City offices and moving east to a new New York City location. The office is at 1296th Avenue. Is inside a building co-owned by the Trump Organization. Well, maybe this is not what I thought it was. Oh no, here we go. Former home of DC Comics, 666 Fifth Avenue. It's currently owned by Kirshner. Yeah. Well, something's happening with Marvel Comics. It looks like it's notable for being obviously cursed. That's interesting. Wait a minute, is that Jared Kushner? Oh, that's a meme of him from... Yeah, something from.
That's Jerry. Yeah, that's him with the.
I mean, this isn't exactly a news site. This is kind of a joke news about comic book site, but we'd have to dig into this. It looks like perhaps Marvel Comics is moving to a building owned by Trump or Kushner. Marvel Comics, of course, is owned by Disney, so people can draw their own opinions about that. But we're just about to head over to Patreon for the show. Anything you guys want to say before we head over there? We should remind people to visit LibyanWarTheTruth.com. That's the place where you can order Jimmy and Joanne's DVD, Escape from Al-Qaeda. The DVD is only $15, and if you sponsor Jimmy and Joanne on Patreon, you're going to get free shipping on that DVD. It makes an excellent Christmas gift. It's a good stocking stuffer for people who are awake and aware of what's going on in the world, and for people who aren't. You could give them this, throw a glass of cold water on them, and tell them to snap out of it. Jimmy, Joanne, anything you want to say before we head over?
4.5 hours of information. DVD's well worth the money, and we're going to, again, all the naysayers that keep throwing rocks at us, saying that our comments don't have any proof behind them, we're going to be laying down a whole blanket of some more truths on the regular show.
We have 3 videos tonight, and we have a lot of other things to talk about. Yeah.
So we'll see everybody in just a couple minutes over there on Patreon. Thank you, Jimmy and Joanne. I'm really looking forward to seeing this material. This is going to be really an important show. I think people don't want to miss this. See everybody there.